Hi team. We're going to look at the lantern and how to build these proto shapes. One of the things that we do for a lot of hollow models is to build the outside of the shape as a solid, and then from there we can build our sides to kind of enclose this hollow shape. It's a lot easier to build it this way. And sometimes, especially if you're changing dimensions, it's a lot easier to control this proto shape than it is to control each of those individual sides. So let me show you how I made this particular shape. This roof part can be actually particularly challenging. So I'm going to start up in a new part studio. I'm going to start by creating a sketch up here. I'm going to grab that top plane for my sketch. When I do that, I'll move this a little bit out of my way. Move this over just a tad as well. And this top plane, I'm going to hit P to turn off my plane and then hit N for normal. Now I'm perpendicular or normal to my sketch plane. Let's start with a nice a center point rectangle. I can also use R on my keyboard. The first click registers the center. Then I'll click somewhere out here for the second click. And then I can start typing in my sides. I'm going to do 4. So I'm just typing in 4 on my keyboard and enter. And then 4 again and enter, and it'll add those dimensions as I go. You could also use the dimension tools after the fact by using D and clicking here to add your dimension that way. It's up to you. Both of those are absolutely fine. For these sides, I like to use somewhere between 2 and 4. If I get much smaller than that, I think even 2 inches is kind of really small. You want to make sure you have room enough for your light bulb, so don't make these dimensions too small or you might run into trouble. All right, and then I'll hit the green check mark to accept my sketch. I'm gonna go to a corner view real fast. And now I'm gonna extrude this. So I grab the corner on the view there. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. I'm gonna grab the extrude command and I'm gonna grab this and let's extrude it out. Let's go about somewhere between 8 and 10 inches. Let's do 10 inches and see what that looks like. Ooh, that's a little too tall. Let's do 8. I'm liking the proportions there. Let's see what 6 looks like. Somewhere between those two. Let's do 6. I kind of actually like that a little better. So I'll hit the green checkbox. This part here, I'm going to rename this and just call this bottom proto or something like that. All right, so that's the first part. That part's probably pretty explanatory. Let's do the top part, right? That's this little canopy shape. So to do that, we're going to use 2 new commands. One of them's the plane command. The other one is the loft command. So let me show you how to do this. First, we need to create a sketch. I'm going to do that sketch right here on the top. And when I do that sketch, I want to include that geometry of that thing that's already there and lock it to that geometry. So I'm going to use in that sketch command and grab that there. And you'll notice, even when I turn off the bottom, that geometry from the bottom kind of shows up in my sketch. That's exactly what I want. So I can turn that off and hit OK. For this, I'm going to offset a little bit. I want to do another rectangle here. Let's grab the middle of my object. Let's go out here. And then I'll do in to get that perpendicular view. And I'm a little rotated. Let me rotate this. There we go. That's a little easier to use. I'm going to leave this as it is, hit escape to get out of that tool. I'm going to add some dimensions around this. So I'm going to use D for dimension. Let's add some dimensions here. Let's do 1 inch on each side. There we go. And now I can see, okay. Let's just add it here. It's actually a little clearer if we put the dimensions there. There we go. So now I've got this extending out 1 inch in each direction. I'm also going to take this line and I'm going to use Q to kind of make this one selection. Sometimes it has a little bit of trouble with that. But all of these lines here are just for construction purposes. You can use that to help you kind of distinguish between this. This one is going to be the loft bottom sketch. And I'm just going to rename that to help me keep track of my sketches here. Then, once I have that in place, I'm going to create go to that corner view again. I'm going to create a plane from there. Grab that plane. In this case, I want to leave it as an offset plane. That's this part right here. That's the plane type. And the entity that I'm going to use, I could use the sketch there to define that offset plane. And if you go to the front view, you can kind of see what's happening. As I drag this out, this offset distance changes. I'm going to go with a distance of about 2 inches here. That seems about right. All right, so once I have that set up, I'll put in 2 inches and then I'll hit the green check mark to accept. Now I have this plane that exists that's floating above my sketch here. So let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and on that create another sketch. So create a second sketch here on the plane. So on this sketch, I'm going to create another rectangle. And I can go here. I'm going to turn off that other sketch so it's not showing up. And from there, I'm going to create one more rectangle and I'll put that up here. In this case, I'll put in some dimensions. I want to put in 3 and 3. You don't have to run these dimensions exactly, but these are some ideas. And you can use that to define this. And I'm going to call this loft top sketch. All right, so now at this point, you can go to that corner view and I'm going to turn on both of my sketches and I'm going to leave the plane off. Now, what loft does is it's going to go between these two sketches and connect these to make a 3-dimensional solid, right? And you can kind of think of these as cross sections. And I could add as many of these and stack them up if I wanted this thing to change shape a lot. You can kind of create some really cool shapes this way. But I'm going to keep it pretty simple this time. I'm just going to do a very simple loft. So once you're here and you have your bottom sketch and your top sketch created, we can go up to loft command. And I'm going to grab some profiles. Now the first one's pretty easy. That's my first profile. And then I'm going to grab my bottom profile. And you'll notice it kind of struggles a bit. There's a red line here. What I need to do is select also that inside part. So you might have to do a little bit of weirdness here. I'm going to come in here and select here, also grab this part. And you'll notice when I do that, it finally creates the solid. It's a little tricky because that inside rectangle is messing a little bit with our shape. I'm going to go ahead and the green checkbox here. And now I have a second part. When I do this, I'm also going to turn off my sketch and I'm going to turn on my part 1. Now I have 2 parts here, and each of these parts I can use to create my object. I'm going to rename the second part. I'm going to call this top proto or something like that so I can keep track of my parts. And I can use this now to create my thin parts. I could take these and I could apply a sheet metal model to that. So if I wanted to grab this part, I could say, hey, exclude the bottom. And I could say, hey, which edges do I want to bend? Maybe I'm bending this edge and this edge and this edge, right? I could say, hey, also forget about that top part. Let's turn off the top proto for a sec. Exclude this top part. Now I've got a sheet metal model of my object that I've bent into place. And if I go to the sheet metal, hey, here's my shape. It's all one single piece. There are the bend lines and such. That's one way to build it. I'm going to undo. The other way to build this, that's really simple, is extrude. Now I could do this 2 ways. I could sketch for the top part. Maybe I want to add a hole. I could sketch here. I could use the same use command that I used before to create that line on my sketch. Turn off my pieces now. There's my sketch. I can add a circle in the middle of that. And I could give it a dimension of 1.75 or something like that, or whatever I need to make my light bulb work. Now I have something I can extrude 1/4 of an inch. And now I have my first part of mini. Right, there's my outside, there's my top. I could also extrude faces directly. I could just come in here and go, hey, let's do an extrude. I'm going to grab this face. I'm going to extrude it 0.25. And I don't usually want, if I want to create a new unique part, I always want to make sure I hit new here. So it creates a new part. But now I have, in addition to my top proto, I also have this edge piece, and I can make copies of this in my assembly and put this together to build my final lantern. Let me go through that process one more time. So with top proto on, all I did was, well, actually I'll do it. I'll show it one more time here on the bottom. If I want to extrude this face, I can use the extrude command, and where it says faces or sketch regions, I can just select that region and put 0.25. And now I have a part where the inside face is being extruded directly from there. Hey, and now I have the piece that I need to complete my design. It's as simple as that.